Good day, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world. And this is a shout out to Charles, who sent me this email and a statement which I think is pretty sums up the situation in South Africa today. So I'll read it to you. And he says, with regards to the present government's efforts to control land, whether farmland or home ownership, may I impress on the reader of the dangerous position our country is in under the African National Congress. I can list a number of state-owned enterprises that are out of control. When the reader learns that I am an old white person, the answer to my remarks would be a white person trying to look after his own interests. But I remind the reader that if myself and family are no longer here, what will the effect be on the majority in the long run? Not much, but the wisdom of the elderly who are joining families overseas is a great loss. May I ask people why the ANC is still in charge? My answer is investigate at the sophistication of the voter. Am I biased? History tells me a different story. The government has planned to change the country. Well, following Robert Mugabe, history tells us is a huge mistake, not taking into account the law of unforeseen consequences. The state makes a wrong decision and is a broadcast in Zimbabwe media. 90% plus unemployment, starvation, collapse of what most of their people were grown up to expect from the government of the white folk. But some will say I'm biased. But in time, history will paint a different picture. If the government carries on with land expropriation without compensation, it may give them votes in the short term. But in the long term, is the government going to end up with a situation which is totally out of control? Food riots, collapse of our banking system, petrol suddenly collapses. We do not rely on policing, as neither the police or military can cope now. Never mind them. The media tells us that South Africa cannot afford a military anymore, and daily news reports tells us that what we expect normally is collapsing around our ears. So what of those citizens who are struggling daily? They do not think or understand government or parliament, and if they voted to do, they really have any idea of what our leaders are going to commit them to. How many beggars in our areas or at road intersections? How many people are leaving the rural areas for the promise of survival in towns or cities, only to end up in crime? I believe our prisons are at the moment, with a population at the rate of 137%. And then on the day of the vow, the state president releases 9% as many as 14,647 criminals. Where does it end? The late Mrs. Penny Sparrow was heavily fined for passing a remark on her Facebook link. So much for freedom of speech. The Penny Sparrow story is tragic. The next major injustice is Vicky Momberg, who was jailed for using the K-word to a policeman after she had been mugged. So what of Mr. Valafi Kumalo, who was advising black people to kill white folks? Then there was Major Malala of the South African Defence Force, who made a derogatory public statement about white people. Then the murder of 76-year-old Professor Kobus Naudé, and during the same attack, Professor Bram van Wyk, 80 years old, had his hands tied behind his back and kicked in the face. Not a pretty sight. We must not forget the BLF leader, Andile Nixitama, and EFF leader, Julius Malema, both who subscribed to the persecution of white people. And then Mrs. Vicky Momberg is sentenced to 2 years in prison. May I suggest our present political leaders do a bit of research into the tragic history of communism and the numbers of innocent people who have lost their lives due to the false promises given by people such as Vladimir Lenin and one of the biggest murderers of all time, Joseph Stalin, apart from Mao Zedong. The historical figures of people killed through genocides run into millions, which would scare the pants off most thinkers. May I ask the readers, do we really want this to happen here? And he signs off, Charles. Thank you, Charles. Really appreciate your email, and please remember to subscribe to be kept informed. Ring the bell for the updates. Please like this video, please share this video, and above all, stay safe. Bye for now.